It was 2:43 a.m., and I was sitting in my tent deep in the Appalachian woods when I heard a scream that wasn't human, but it wasn't an animal either. If it were you, would you stay hidden inside the tent or run for your life? Drop your city and time in the comments. And if you enjoy real legends and true horror encounters, don't forget to subscribe. Now listen to the real story of that night. It was a cold November evening when my friends and I hiked out to a remote stretch of the Appalachian Trail, not far from Point Pleasant, near the edge of old Cherokee land. The plan was simple: set up camp, sit around a fire, share stories, and spend a quiet night under the stars. The fire kept us warm, but every time I stepped away from it, the air grew damp and biting, filled with the smell of wet soil and fallen leaves. Crickets and frogs sang their chorus at first, but as the night deepened, the sounds dropped off one by one until the woods felt hollow. Later, when I crawled into my tent, trying to settle into the sleeping bag, I kept thinking about the wooden sign we had passed at the trailhead. It was scarred with deep claw marks, too sharp and too long to have come from any ordinary animal. Sometime after 1 a.m, I heard the first sound. A low growl drifted through the trees, soft but unmistakable. I told myself it was just a coyote or maybe a mountain lion. Predators weren't rare out here. But then came something else. A scream. High-pitched, sharp, and filled with pain. It was a woman's voice. My chest tightened, my heartbeat racing, but I whispered to myself that it had to be some animal's dying cry. Still, I couldn't shake the unease. The silence that followed was worse than the sound itself, because through it I could hear something heavier. Footsteps, shifting between 4 legs and 2, moving closer. I unzipped my tent slowly and shined my flashlight into the fog. The mist clung to the trees so thick I could only see 10 feet ahead. Then 2 eyes glowed back at me from the tree-line. Yellow-green, unblinking, fixed directly on me. They didn't look like they belonged to a man or a beast, but something caught between both. My phone had no signal. I felt completely cut off. Then a branch snapped close by, and I caught a glimpse in the beam of my light. Half-human shoulders, muscled cougar legs, and fur shining wet in the fog. I killed the flashlight instantly, and the darkness swallowed me whole. A shrill scream tore through the night, shaking me to my bones. The ground trembled with each step as it entered the camp. I could hear claws scraping the dirt, circling. Through the thin fabric of the tent, I saw its shadow, taller than any man, crouched, its jaw stretched too wide, teeth gleaming. Those glowing eyes seemed to pin me in place, daring me to move. I forced myself out of the sleeping bag, flicked on the flashlight, and froze at the sight. The Wampus Cat crouched low, ready to spring, its scream so piercing it felt like it ripped the air itself apart. My chest felt crushed, my legs locked, and all I could think was that the forest itself was closing in around me, squeezing out every way to escape. I ran, through branches, over rocks, barely able to see, but I could hear it chasing me, the heavy thud of paws, the hiss of breath right behind. I remembered an old Cherokee tale about a woman cursed for using witchcraft, transformed into a beast, doomed to wander these mountains. When I stumbled into a clearing and fell, I thought it was the end. But instead of attacking, it stopped. It just stood there, staring. Its eyes burned with rage, but behind it, I swear I saw sorrow. For a moment, I believed it didn't want to kill me. It wanted me to understand its pain. And then, with the first light of dawn bleeding into the sky, it vanished. When I returned to camp, the others laughed off my story, but I kept the proof. A long claw mark slashed across the side of my tent. Days later, when I got home, something waited on my doorstep. A small bundle of cougar fur twisted together with strands of human hair, reeking of smoke. Ever since then, whenever I pass through the Appalachian woods, I feel shadows walking with me. And I wonder, if you heard that scream in the trees, would you stop and listen, or would you run? It was December in Point Pleasant, the kind of night where the fog clings to the ground like a heavy blanket. The closer I drove toward the river, the thicker it got, and the air carried that strange iron smell you only notice when the world feels wrong. The trees leaned in over the road, their bare branches scraping against each other like whispers I wasn't supposed to hear. I lit a cigarette to calm myself, but even the smoke felt damp, like it didn't belong in my lungs. People in town always talked about Mothman, red eyes, giant wings, and disaster following wherever it appeared. I never bought into those stories. But on that road, in that silence, it felt like the shadows themselves were listening. I turned off the radio, but the static didn't stop. It kept hissing, low and sharp, like it was crawling through the wires of my truck. I rolled the window down for air, and that's when it hit me. The smell of wet iron, but sharper, almost like fresh blood. My chest tightened. I told myself it was just a dead animal somewhere on the roadside. But then the headlights caught something at the edge of the road. A shadow too tall to be a branch, too fast to be anything human. It slipped back into the fog before I could even process it, leaving my heart racing harder than I wanted to admit. The fog grew so thick that the world shrank down to just the beam of my headlights. I slowed the truck, but unease kept twisting in my gut. That's when I noticed something that made no sense. The same diner sign I had passed almost 15 minutes ago. Silver Diner, home of the best pie. It was right there again, glowing faint through the haze. I gripped the wheel tighter, a panic rising that I couldn't explain. And then it happened. A heavy thud shook the roof, like something massive had dropped onto it. The truck swayed under the weight. I slammed the brakes, grabbed my flashlight, and stepped out. The cold hit me hard, sharper than before, and when the beam cut across the roof, my breath caught. Deep claw marks scraped into the metal, long and deliberate. From the trees, a pair of glowing red eyes watched me, unblinking. Those eyes weren't reflecting light, they were burning with it. I couldn't move. The beam caught the outline of something crouched low, massive wings tucked tight, waiting. The metallic scent grew stronger, filling the air until it pressed against my skin. And then I heard it. A vibration, low and relentless, humming straight into my bones. My throat locked. I wanted to scream, but nothing came out. I stumbled back into the truck, jammed the keys into the ignition, and floored the gas. The creature launched into the air, wings spreading wider than the road itself, and it glided just above me. Every flap shook the truck. Then came the voice, broken, metallic, as if coming through the radio itself. One word repeated, stretched, and warped. Warning, warning. By the time I reached Silver Bridge, the world had gone eerily still. No other cars, no movement, just the sound of my own breathing and the wings shadowing me. The red eyes locked onto me through the glass as if reading my thoughts. Locals always said the Mothman was a sign of disaster, and as I hit the middle of the bridge, I heard it, the groaning snap of steel under pressure. For a second, I swore I saw flashes of people plunging into dark water, dozens of faces twisted in fear, frozen forever. My hands locked on the wheel, my chest screaming for air. And then, as suddenly as it started, it ended. The bridge stood strong beneath me. No collapse, no crash, just silence. I didn't look back until I was safely on the other side. The creature was gone, but something else was there. Sitting in the passenger seat was a rusted bridge bolt, dripping wet as if pulled straight from the riverbed. My stomach dropped. The radio flicked back on by itself, static fizzing until a voice broke through. A whisper, cracked and hollow. This is only the beginning. When I finally made it home, my front doorstep was waiting for me, with the same bolt, still wet, and tiny muddy footprints pressed into the ground around it. They weren't shaped like human feet. They looked reversed, like something had walked backward out of the river and straight to my door.